Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and this is a World War III report with Elly and William. And William's kind of on hold. I have an important phone call coming through from my doctor. So I got him kind of on hold, and I'm going to do the local and world news that's going on before I bring William back. So North Korean sisters jeers at Seoul in the New Year's greeting and boasts of nuclear progress. So Kim Yo Jong, the powerful sister of North Korea leader Kim Jong-un, mocked South Korea president as stupid and sarcastically praised his hard-line policy for giving boost to Pyongyang's own weapons program. It deserves to be praised, she said, as a top-class person who made a significant contribution to build-up of the self-defense and irresistible military muscle of the dark of the part of the DPRK. It's much easier to deal with stupid and an honest man who has shown his hostility against an enemy than a wicked man with honey in his mouth and a sword in his heart. That's what she said. She vowed to build peace through strength and accelerated defensive readiness alongside Washington and Tokyo. And she's talking Trump. It will not be a submissive peace that is independent on the goodwill of the adversary. By the first half of this year, we will complete enhanced ROK U.S. extended deterrence system to fundamentally deter any North Korean nuclear and missile threat. The U.S. commitment to use all the capabilities, including nuclear, to defend North Korea from North threats. Her statement called Yoon's pledge to complete extended deterrence of the system a valuable gift. She's ready to go to war, folks. She's ready to go to war. It doesn't matter what her brother thinks. Now, her brother put out a New Year's, and I went over this last night, and even into with William's report, that we are now looking at his sister doing the one-upsmanship. So is she forcing him to strike at the United States, maybe Hawaii? We don't know. But we know they're building up. Are they going to strike South Korea or Hawaii? It's Hawaii and the United States. So this is what it, to me, okay, folks, I wish, William could be right here with me. And if he puts anything in the chat, I'll throw it up there. It would be best for them to try to strike the United States, and I don't want to see that. But if they strike Hawaii, it's a big gesture or a big, you know what, hey, we're here. We're going to do Hawaii, but we can do LA, San Francisco. We could do Seattle. We could do anywhere we want along the western coast. Now Susan said, I think North Korea is planning to go after the South Korea. I think that is a ploy. I think it's fake. I think it's the strength in saying we can do this. They have been saying for the last year, Hawaii, and we can hit the West Coast. Hawaii, West Coast. Hawaii, West Coast. Oh, now, wait a minute. Now we're going to go after South Korea. Uh, uh, you got to remember, he lies. And not only that, he's had um, uh, private talks with Jinping, Russia, and with BRIC. And now we're looking at, we could be seeing China influence um, North Korea to do, uh, uh, what it gets to me is we look at Iran and the proxies, using the proxies to go after the United States and Israel. Now we see North Korea, we see the proxies of China to go after South Korea or Hawaii or the West Coast. Is this another war that's going to start with North Korea and with uh, China backing it up? And it makes a lot of sense. Um, and it'll be big, is what William says. Now, William, if I don't receive this phone call by 5:30, the phone's being brought in. I'm going to bring you in. So, William, if I need you to go ahead and um, boy, it's going to be a rough one. Between William and me and the phone call I have coming in, folks. This is an important phone call. It's a appointment for me to get checked out, and it's important to not only William, to me, to Karen, to a lot of my chat viewers. So I'm going to go ahead and do the show. And if I get the phone call, if I don't, the phone's being brought in at 5:30, and we're going to continue with William, and he can even go back. William, take notes, because if you need to go back and explain things, I'll give it over to you to explain. All right, so Kim Jong Un's sister, with her um, address to say that America is to be annihilated, South Korea is to be bombed, and North Korea is going to continue with nuclears to be able to agree with China to attack the United States. Now, now Kim's sister's statement, uh, DOJ is considering it nothing more than a ridiculous statement. I think not. I think we need to take it seriously, because when we did not take it seriously when we see the proxies of Iran and what they have done now. Now we have um, North Korea, a proxy of China, and his sister and him saying, death to South Korea, death to America. Our military will establish a firm preparedness posture, and any punishment that North Korea is put forth strongly to the end. So we have We have ramped up military cooperation since Yoon took office in 2022. North Korea has conducted missiles and weapons tests uh, since Trump administration, folks. And he went over and said, no, 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 you're not going to do this. He said, okay, I'll agree with you. What did Trump offer him to get him to stop? Now we have Biden in office. Biden has now pushed North Korea, Kim Jong Un, and his sister to China. Now I'm going to look into this. I'm going to investigate this, and I'm going to find out why we are looking at. It's not necessarily South Korea. I believe it is to join with BRIC, with China, Iran, Russia, uh, that they are going to be the player like a proxy, like what we're seeing in Israel. William says he'll do chat room. Well, William, if as of 20 minutes from now, if they haven't called, I'm going to bring you in because you have a lot to say on all of this. Um, um, so, what are we looking at with North Korea? Now, is North Korea going to strike Taiwan? They have never mentioned it. They always said Hawaii and the West Coast. Would it be odd for North Korea to strike Taiwan? No. No one's ever thought about that. Now, I did because now I'm looking at North Korea and Taiwan. And what I've seen and read is that North Korea with China and Russia will strike where they say is needed. Now, now we are looking at Jinping saying that over Mao, we are looking at Taiwan to surrender to China, and which isn't going to happen. Taiwan has said no. We've got the UN, we've got the United States, UK, and big military to swoop in and be able to help us out. So they're saying no. And hello to Karen and Mary Jo, and between the two of them are our moderators. What are we looking at with the Korean and his sister? Now, his sister gave us a little bit. He gave us a little bit, and now I'm seeing that they are upset at Japan for having exercises done with the United States. Well, what has happened since then? Well, we had a military plane collide with um, a commercial jet. We've had earthquakes, serious earthquake that wasn't supposed to happen there. Now, if you watch my weather and lifestyle show, it should have been Mexico, not Japan. That was odd. And so now that Japan is hit with, now they said a 7.8. I heard 7.4, 7.5, 7.6. No, the first report is the one I go on was 7.8. And on the west side, which would cause a tsunami that would hit Philippines, Japan, and others that China is looking at to be able to gain power over South Korea. Okay, so I'm going to try to get to some of the news. uh, Supreme Court. The facts are seriously bad for Trump haters. Now, you remember the guy that went after the Supreme Court? Well, it was in the middle of the night. He was being chased by police. The police chased him to the Capitol. He broke into the Capitol, and of course, we have 24-hour um, policing of the Capitol. So he held the Capitol police at gunpoint. So was it during a session? No. Did they uh, hold Congress at gunpoint? No. So if you're hearing on the mainstream media that, this guy was there during daylight hours, no, it was the middle of the night. He was running for police. He happened to be there, stopped, ran in, held Capitol Police at gunpoint, thinking that if he held him, that they would stop. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. So, boy, the lies that they spin on mainstream media, and now uh, they have to change the conclusion of this. It took place at 1:15 a.m. Um, no one's there. The suspect encountered an unarmed security guard, and he held him at gunpoint. Yeah, okay. Uh, Olson was accused of starting a fire on the seventh floor, causing sprinklers to go off. So it's understandable based on these facts alone. Colorado Supreme Patrol confirmed high probability that break-in and the Supreme Court justice against Trump is unrelated. That's the truth right there, folks. How many times did you guys watch Cops? How many times do they're chasing a vehicle, they jump out, they run for the nearest building? Well, the nearest building was the Capitol. And why is our Capitol Police unarmed? I seen that. That was the first question I had when I started reading the documents. Why is the Capitol Police unarmed? After everything that's happened, really? Shouldn't they be armed? I'm gonna go with that. Um, you know, I'm keeping touch with the polls. And I want to do a lot of the news first before I bring William in. Number of voters saying Biden's election illegitimate jumps to 20% in Washington Post poll. So now they're starting to say that January 6th attack, maybe they covered things up. And now maybe they're looking at 24% and 17% looking at the events of January 6th, maybe wasn't really correct. And the same thing with the polls right now when they're starting to poll people and asking about do they believe January 6th and then do they believe Trump in the last 2020 election. And now they're starting to say no, which is driven his. Now get this, I seen today 65%. 65% for Trump. Why? Because Maine, they say. Because Maine wants to go after him and take him off the ballot. It added a few more points. When are the Democrats going to learn that if they are going to take him off the ballot, it's only going to gain points? And I said last night, I'm starting to wonder if this isn't going to be where they stuff the ballots for Trump and then accuse Trump of padding the election. You can't put nothing past these people. It's not all Democrats, folks. It's not all Democrats. Some of them are now starting to change to the Republican Party, saying this isn't what they're all about. You know, you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around, folks. And when they seen the hokey pokey and they turned themselves around, they started seeing that what the mainstream media is putting forth is not the realization of what's actually happening. The price increases. The price increases that everyone is subjected to, even the Democrats. And now the Democrat voters are seeing it. We have had 20% of African American voters that have switched parties. We are now looking at Latinos, Mexicans. Even the college students are now moving towards the GOP. So, all in all, they've lost 40% of their voting under um, Latino, Chicanos, Mexican, and African Americans. Is this a landslide? Are they causing a landslide and why? Yeah. Uh, so that's what the voters are saying. Um, Now, 379 people aboard erupts of flames after colliding with the military plane. Now, this is a Coast Guard aircraft on the runway of Tokyo. Now, it's been on the news, folks, so I don't want to put too much into it. 5 of the 6 crew members on the Coast Guard plane died. 17 Japan airline passengers were injured. Uh, is this suspicious? I say so. The same time we're seeing a airline land on a runway and a military Coast Guard ship or plane and an earthquake that is crazy 7.8, 7.6, 7.5 that destroys the west side of Japan, causes a tsunami. And causes tsunami towards where? North Korea, South Korea, the Philippines. China, of course. China's okay with it. Was this, now I could be a conspiracy theory and say, I think this is HARP or that new machine that I've talked about last Thursday. But I talk about weather wars, earthquake wars. And then we had Iran say, well, you know what? It may not have been an earthquake. It may have only just been an explosion. Where'd we hear that? New York. New York said, no, maybe it was an explosion, not an earthquake. Why? Why not just go what GPS says? GPS says, no, it was an earthquake. There wasn't an explosion. So who's right? The media that there was explosion or USGS saying there was not and there was a rise. What I mean by rise, you start off low, it grows and grows and grows, earthquake, and it goes down, down, down. Now, I learned that when I was in Eureka, when we had the 7.0, that there was, we seen the little ones, yes, we didn't feel them. Then we felt the stronger ones. Then, boom, in the middle of the night, we got hit with the big one. Then it went slow down to 6 and 5 and 4s. We're not seeing that. We're seeing earthquakes in spots that have no fault lines. And these countries saying, no, 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 it wasn't an explosion, it was an earthquake. Well, USGS is bravely enough to step in and say, New York had an earthquake. So did New Jersey. So did South Carolina. Why? Well, the whole thing is not just New Jersey, it was DC. So, what did Iran, which has um, a, a military um, type of HARP that they can direct it? So, where did Iran I'm going to say all the terrorists, Al Qaeda, Taliban, ISIS, Houthi, Hamas, Hezbollah, they all said the places they would attack would be New York, DC, LA. Well, LA had one, DC had one, New York had one. Think for yourselves, folks. Go look it up. Listen to Dutch Sense. Dutch Sense is on YouTube, and so we, I'm just presenting you the facts, and the facts is I don't know if this was an attack or. And last night I said they're dumbing us down. They're numbing us down. Is this to dumb and numb us to if New York and DC gets an earthquake of a 2, 3, 4, 5? Is that okay? With not even on the fault line. Okay. Now, 60 years ago, Congress killed off, and this was the Democrats, mental hospitals and a complete breakdown of the system. Now, as lawmakers, Congress and Senate calling for a resolution to bring them back. Okay, they failed to confront the slacking employee and other workers carrying more of the load. And what they're talking about is the aides in the offices of the Democrat Party. Your wives, your husbands, your family members, sisters, brothers, moms, and dads. They wonder why they are unable to work, unable to be able to move into society and be able to interact with society. And then we have those that are homeless, those on drugs with mental issues. What about the vets with post traumatic? They're now starting to see it was a big mistake, according to the Republicans. And they said even the Republicans voted for this to disband mental hospitals due to treatment and the horrible conditions they were living in. Isn't it time to start building the hospital fresh? Make sure they don't have these issues and to start treating the mental illness or those that need to be. We got the, what is it, Ford Treatment Center that does a lot of the treatment for drugs, alcohol, but we need more like this that isn't just for the well-to-do. And what about some of these hospitals now that closed down? They're not old. They're not falling apart. It would be best to start putting them together to start treating the mental issues that we have going across not only our country, but across the globe. And to start, folks, SSRIs aren't good, folks. They're not. As much as you think they're going to help you, um, it's only keeping you stuck. Now, some of them do help certain people, not all of them. Some of them, it just makes matters worse. It puts you in a deeper depression. It puts you in um, to where you're suicidal. And didn't you, when you go to these psychiatrists, they're saying, well, no, you just have to keep taking it. Well, I'm going to up it. Well, if they up it and you become more suicidal, isn't that saying that the SSRIs aren't working? Maybe they need counseling. Maybe they need further help. Maybe they just need the government to be able to treat them fairly to where they get money to where they're able to live. That's a big point. Uh, if they had the money to be able to pay their bills, pay their rent, have groceries, a lot of them wouldn't have the issues they're having. But let's just throw them on SSRIs, and if they can't conform, we're going to increase them. So, folks, think about this. Me and William might have to do a show on this, uh, very soon. Um, I don't want to stick around long on it because this is World War news, World War III news. Um, um, Now we have a huge drone strike. Um, and this was by Israel drone strike. It takes out multiple Hamas leaders who were meeting in Lebanon. And I have a big report on this, folks. I want to wait till I can get William in here. We're getting close. If I don't see him in here, get my phone call in the next few minutes. We'll hook up William back in here. Um, Biden administration fast tracking Chinese illegal immigrants. We see them pouring through the north, through Canada. We see hundreds of them coming through the south. For some reason, Biden is fast tracking and telling border security, let Chinese through. Why? And when the reporter asked, he said, I need payment for the border. Okay, so he needs money for the border. Isn't that what we've been trying to do for 2 years, 3 years, even during Trump, to get the money to be able to put up the wall, put up the wall? They said no, razor wire, and razor wire is expensive. So he is going to now pay for razor wire when the components of the wall, the steel beams, have been paid for. They just need to be put up. Now he's going with razor wire. Who wrote that script? Now, this was odd. Now, I had seen a thing, I think it came from a Democrat news source, that Trump's lawyer made a stupid mistake. Well, then right after, I got a article of DC court shoots down 3 of 5 civil counts alleging Trump responsible for the death of Brian Sicknick, the Capitol police officer. Uh, the day after the J6 insurrection, the chief medical examiner determined that he died of natural causes. He had heart issues. He'd been treated for it, but they kept him on the force anyway. And on that day, they pushed him forward. It's kind of like the George Floyd. Folks, I hate to tell you this. George Floyd died of fentanyl poisoning, fentanyl overdose. And now, how does his lawyer, the DA, and the judges look at this when the media continuously throws a narrative out there over and over and over and over and over again till you believe it, and then it's repeated over and over and over again? In a 12-page ruling, the U.S. District Judge admit they discussed 3 of the 5 civil counts in the lawsuit. Garza's lawsuit against Trump and January 6th, rioters and George Tanlos sought damages from three men for claims, of wrongful death, and it wasn't there. The U.S. District Court Judge Mehta ruled Tuesday that Sicknick's partner Sandra Garza can proceed with her civil lawsuit against Trump over the officer's death. Why isn't his family doing this? Why is it his partner? But only on two of the counts, the wrongful death and negligence civil counts against Trump, but will allow Garza's claims against Trump under D.C. Survival Act to proceed. The Survival Act allows individual legal representation pursue of legal actions on their behalf after their death. Garza is a representative of Sicknick's estate. All right, hold on, folks. Okay, William, you're going to get a phone call. So I'm going to get William in here, folks. I told you I'd do this, and all right. So William, get ready. Hey, there we go. Now we got William in here. William. So William, did you since I'm pretty much done with this, did you want to go back on any of them that I just did?
Okay, stop the back feed there.
Okay, so we got North Korea sister, then we got the
We got the gunman at the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
We've got JAL crash. So let's start with Kim Jong-un's sister.
Hello, William.
Pardon?
I said, hello, William, from the chat room.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, if you're a dictator in any country, your retirement plan is basically the grave. And Kim and his sister are internally vying for power within North Korea. Now, keep in mind, North Korea is a starving nation. They're always on the verge of famine. So they need help from outside, money, resources, food, things like that. And so they have to please some of their masters outside of North Korea. So that's going on. And at the same time, Kim and his sister are vying for power within the state of North Korea. And whoever turns out to be strongest is going to be the leader of North Korea, and whoever turns out not to be strongest is going to have to step down or be killed or exile themselves. And if they can keep enough good security, maybe the last 10 years before, they can't afford the security and they're taken out. So this is really a play of hostility to ensure that their backers are happy. Likely China, likely Russia. Get the United States off from Russia's back with Ukraine. Get United States more off the back of China with respect to Taiwan. So that's all going on at the China and also North Korea towards, North Korea is looking at not only South Korea, but they're looking at the Sea of Japan. And we've got the Taiwan Straits, we've got the Philippine Islands, right? All these things are becoming contested. And so the United States, we used to have an island close to Japan that we actually did Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those 509th airplanes flew out of Tinian. And it looks like the United States is going to be moving back into Tinian now in the Northern Marianas to kind of thwart what's going on with North Korea and with China. All right, that's going on. And the gunman at the Capitol building. He may have had a bad experience in that building and was being chased, and at the same time he was thinking, well, I can run in there. And also keep in mind that in most of these buildings, state buildings like that, they don't have armed security. They just have contracted security. And if the contracted security has a problem with an armed individual, they have the police deal with it, right? They're just there to be eyes and ears. So that's kind of what was going on at the Capitol in Colorado. Now this JAL crash. So United States federal administration, that's over airworthiness and safety. That's their head is a political leader, so I'm not even going to go there. We know who that is. But when they are doing their jobs to their utmost capacity, and we've had a number of incursions with respect to ground control and incoming aircraft in the United States. Now, we almost lost 500 some souls. And it was what they call a near miss. Well, it was a miss, but it was a near catastrophe. And when a jet comes in, it takes time for those engines to spool up and get power if you want to go around. That's why when a fighter jet lands on a carrier, they're at full military power, right? So that they don't have to wait to spool up if they somehow don't catch the wire and stop. Well, if you have an incursion onto the runway and suddenly a tower or somebody else screams, go around, it takes a second for those engines to spool up so they can lift it and go around. These birds are really heavy. So between the lax enforcement here in the United States, and when we have lax enforcement here in the United States, it trickles out all over the world. If there's an incident around the world that has to do with a U.S. airplane, the United States investigates it. So it puts a great deal of pressure on all the other countries around the world to maintain their air safety at a peak level. And when the United States becomes lax at it, well, the other international air traffic controllers start to become lax. It's like, remember when Reagan came in, he fired all the air traffic controllers because he didn't feel, number one, they were doing their job safely, and number two, they wanted too much money for what they were doing, right, between the unions. And so he brought in military air traffic controllers, and all the dangerous stuff just went away, right? Well, we're kind of at that ebb again, once again. And unfortunately, a Japanese Coast Guard airplane went out to taxi onto the runway, and they had an aircraft landing at the same time, and it was clipped. It wasn't a direct head-on collision, but it obviously damaged one of the wings. And when you have an aircraft moving quickly, that kerosene flies up into the air and it atomizes, and then it becomes volatile. So any spark will cause it to have a terrific fire. Gasoline, you can't get a spark around gasoline, period, because it evaporates. Jet fuel doesn't evaporate, but if it's moving fast enough and thrown into a spray, then it will ignite. And so that's what happened. They were able to get all the passengers off that airplane. It was obviously filling with smoke. They went down the slides on the opposite side. Unfortunately, those slides they're not created to protect everybody, absolutely. They're designed to get as many people off the aircraft as quickly as possible. And people will sustain injuries if they don't land right. It's just like if you land in a parachute and you don't land right, you're going to have a physical injury. So what else do you want me to go towards, Elly?
Well, I guess we can move on. Al-Qaeda, a video is threatening New York City with the energy grid, subway, and transportation. The video is the American flag followed by Israel flags. Now, this is due to a video that was put out. It is called Inspire, and it was published in 2017. It was pulled by YouTube and other places. The video suggests that the brand has been reinvented and expanded in its form. No, the longer video was released days after the first. Its issues call to action to take revenge on what is happening in Gaza, Israel, and it responded to Hamas and the Middle East. And they are admitting to killing about 1,200 people and kidnapped 240 others. Israel responded with military force. The other video includes instructions for building concealed bomb for airplanes to attack the United States through little bombs to airplanes crashing into buildings. So they haven't quit. The hatred hasn't stopped, no matter how big the protests are. They still hate the United States. And what they do over here in protests is just very small to the hatred they have through Iran. I don't know, William. I not much on that one.
So Al-Qaeda is not a Shiite organization. It's a Sunni organization. So they're the majority of the Islamic populations of the world, okay? But if you're on the east side of the Gulf, right, then you're Shiite. The Shiites will harbor Sunni terrorist groups if they think the same way. And so, like, bin Laden went to Afghanistan and was protected by Shiites because the United States had been decided to hunt them. And it was a great place to have training bases because it was a very permissive environment. So now nothing has changed with respect to Al-Qaeda.
Or Taliban.
Since the bombing. What has happened is bin Laden is dead, and now it's likely his son running this. And they've been bled out. They got whack-a-mole. Now they're trying to build up power again. And you need to have some amount of gravitas to get money and arms from some of these other countries. They're not interested in arming you unless you become a threat to their enemies, right? So this threat that came out to New York and everything, that had that purpose. Also, there's a continuous fatwa upon the United States and Israel and other even Islamics that have become westernized.
Yes.
denounced Hamas and their terror tactics. So these individuals have fatwas upon them as well. So don't think it's just the United States. It's anybody that goes against Islam. So that's happening. Now, would Al-Qaeda do it again? Yeah, they'd do it in a heartbeat.
That's right. And, you know,
So,
go ahead.
So with respect to bombs, there has always been what they call cookbooks out there in the world. And, you know, they download them, they print them, they pass them around to each other. There's no way to stop these cookbooks. But they've always existed. So go ahead, Elly.
Well, you mentioned the cookbooks, and I was just going to say something about that. Is these cookbooks is what the Inspire video is all about, of how they're going to go after New York. They're going to go after D.C. Just like what we've seen that I talked about earlier. And this video, it's been banned. It's really hard to get a hold of. But if you guys can find it, watch it. Because it's what the not only Al-Qaeda or Taliban or any of these terror groups, it's what they all want. This is what they consider a holy war. Now, Hamas has mentioned this. Hezbollah mentioned it. Iran, Israel, most like Saudi, Iraq, Houthi, Libya, all of them have now said this is a holy war. But when you put it into the United States, William, when the media puts it forth, it's a culture war. That's why the other day I labeled the show as a culture war. Because, see, this is how they twist it around. And that's why they hate the West, because the West and their propaganda. The propaganda meaning that this is a war that has been, they have been waiting thousands of years for. And they would see the signs. So this
is considered holy war in any Muslim country. They don't have to come out officially with their government. All the individuals within these countries know it's holy war, right? Even if their government officials don't come out and say it. And what is it a holy war against? Judeo-Christian and their acolytes.
Their allies, yeah.
Right, their allies. And the other side is Islam and their acolytes, their allies. So this is just a continual struggle since the Red Sea was parted. And Moses brought the Israelites out of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So,
it is what it is. And it's not going to go away. And if they get an opportunity, they absolutely will hit us again.
And how are they going to, and how they're going to do it is, boy, it comes to the next few things I found out with guerrilla camps. They're set up by leftist groups, which means leftist groups, meaning the Democrats, World Economic Forum, and others that assist cartels in the southern border invasion. Now, they are now looking at Guinea, I believe it's Guinea, out of Africa. And they're seeing passports of men, 26, 27, that are trying to present themselves with passports as a 13 to 15-year-old. So, and to get across. And when asked, they said, because that's how they're going to sneak across to get into these leftist camps that are assisted by the cartels on the southern border. And so now, hold on, William. There was an article that came out today that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran are boasting that they train children from the age of 5 on to be soldiers. And at 13 years old, they move on to the next step, where they send them where needed to be able to take out the United States and Israel. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a couple reasons they're trying to come in the country as young people. First, they get preferential treatment, right? They also get put in schools, and they also have access to our young ladies.
Yes.
People don't think about that, but that's part of the deal, right? We want to ingratiate ourselves into the population so that we can use a population that typically would not be aligned with Islam through marriage and grandchildren. So that's going to go on. That's we'll just call it sexual warfare.
Yeah. Well, all the above. It's with them getting the kids in and they're saying, "Oh, I have to go to Chicago." I think I did this last night, and they say, "Well, I got this phone number. Well, who's there? I don't know. I just need to call it, and I'm supposed to go to Chicago." And they're infiltrating our gangs, and they're infiltrating our schools
so that
and colleges.
The adult people that try to be children. Now we also have, like out of Guinea, we have child soldiers coming in as children.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and they get in free. They get in because of asylum with the women. And how many of these children are terrorist trained that we don't even know about?
So here's something you need to keep in mind. In the United States, we have baptisms. In Judaism, they have bar mitzvahs. There's cultural things you go through to become a young man or woman in our culture. Well, there's the same thing that goes on in Islam. But they've added a new jewel, which is we're going to teach them to fight with weapons. That's going to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So Islam has that group. The old Soviet Union had the Young Pioneer Movement, which was basically Boy Scouts with guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have children coming into the United States, and they get involved, in the political intrigue of junior high and high school, and they will radicalize and teach the other kids in the school how to do what they've learned out on the battlefield. And so that's a terrible option. Now, we have these cookbooks out here that these people can get involved, and there are ways to make those things worse than you can ever imagine. And I'm not even going to go into explaining how they do it, and what they use, because I don't want to give them a heads up, if they hear me. But they can do terrible destruction to cities, high concentration to cities. They can hollow out those cities with just a few small devices. And the cities will have to just be rebuilt someplace else. The population will have to leave for a period of time.
Now, William, the next one, and I got to thinking about it all afternoon. It's what it is Wrights-Patterson commander is resigning, or they're going to go ahead and put him out for being weak. William, how often do we see Pentagon or the Department of Justice or Defense put a commander out due to weakness?
So he didn't violate his duty, all right? He was doing all of his leadership duties.
Right.
The problem was under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, if you have certain personal problems in your family or your love life, now what happens when just a regular divorce happens? The spouse will allege all kinds of stuff. Can get you removed. That can get you removed from a command under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, because your people can't lead you. They can't have absolute respect and believe they're going to be treated equally no matter what happens, if they're male or female, right? And also you can have situations under UCMJ, where you can't fraternize with a lesser ranked individual. So if I'm a staff sergeant in the United States, right, Air Force, and I want to date somebody in the United States Air Force, they have to be a staff sergeant.
Yeah.
I can't date a sergeant below, and I can't date a tech sergeant and above. I only have the opportunity to date another staff sergeant because you don't want to dilute the leadership power of the United States. Another thing that goes on is you can't show public displays of affection. If you're wearing a uniform or you're on a military base, you don't go around holding hands and kissing, right? So there's all these different things that are part of the military culture. Now, what his transgression is, it wasn't operationally, okay, and he was in control of the materiel command. So he makes sure that all the other bases, all the other operations around the world have the parts, tools, chemicals, whatever it is that they need on time, in place, and useful to them, right?
Yeah.
And he was still doing that job. He was still getting that accomplished. So he's not a bad individual. And you have to keep in mind, he's a full bird colonel, all right? So he's a colonel in the Air Force. A colonel in the Air Force is like special operations is to a Navy sailor or command of a battle group. So it's a big, big deal. And these people absolutely have to be 100% starched, right? Starched uniforms, act appropriately, maintain the honor of the military, and uphold the rule of Uniform Code of Military Justice, and ensure that the United States is able to fight its enemies with what it has at any time, anywhere, right? He had a personal indiscretion. We don't know what that indiscretion was. It could be not his fault. It could be his fault. We don't know. That information's not going to be given out. It's never going to be given out. Because we don't want to give the enemy the capacity to go and destroy our officers through their intelligence networks and whatnot. So they're never going to share that information with anybody. All we know is it wasn't operational, it was personal, and that's as good as we'll ever know.
Yeah. Now, as far as Russia, more and more, I've seen, oh gosh, everybody, even I go on the mainstream media, because when the mainstream media starts saying it, you kind of know it's going to happen. That Zelensky is out of power. He's out of equipment. He begged and begged, and he's begged out. And they're now saying there's a good possibility that he's just going to back out of the war. It won't be a surrender. It won't be I'm just going to back out for a little bit. He's basically at a loss. And as we're looking at Russia now, during the wintertime, William, you know this, Russia will increase its equipment and men, because they know a lot of people can't fight in the wintertime. They exercise in the wintertime. So they're ready to take over. And more, we sent $800 billion. And then we said, this is it. We don't have no more to send. And will they use it for the good? And they said, no, we've got these jets. We can take Russia now. And as of today, when I looked at Russia, they said there's no ceasefire. There's no more hostages going to be exchanged. We're going to go and we're going to end this quickly. And hopefully they'll bow out. And rumors has it that Zelensky's saying enough is enough. We kind of knew that, William.
We're likely going to look at a truce. It's not going to be the end of war. It's just going to be a cessation of hostilities. They're going to say, well, my position is still my position. Your position is still your position. We're just not going to be shooting, right? And both will set up their lines of defense, and they'll keep looking at each other for the next 30 years. That's likely what's going to happen.
Oh, I don't think this is the end, William. I think they're going to have a Civil War skirmish like they did in 2016 over and over and over again.
Yeah, they'll have minor ones, but they'll be minor like North Korea and South Korea. North Korea and South Korea are still at war. They're just under a truce right now.
Yeah. And then kind of moving on, this was kind of weird because I thought Poland was all for Ukraine, but Polish farmers to resume blockade of Ukraine border crossing. Now, this is over food, folks. And I don't think Poland it will allow it for anything to come through. Now, me and you talked about this. It's the leader of the farmer protests. His name is Kondro. He basically told the media that agriculture minister Kirski had provided a note telling the farmers that their demands would be met. The prime minister had not given a sign of declaration, but it's all over getting produce out. And Poland is blocking it. And no one, Poland didn't give a response. They just are blocking it. And
so this is it's really complicated. So what happened was Ukraine can't always export its food out through the Black Sea because they have problems with the Russians occasionally. So they want to move that food up through into Europe and perhaps out the Baltic, right? Just the opposite direction. They're still going to get to sea and go a longer way around to deliver their food. The problem is that food comes in and reduces the value of the farmers' food in Poland because Poland's grain is at a premium and Ukraine's grain is at a minimum because they're involved in a war. So the buyers can buy cheaper with Ukraine. Well, those grains start flowing through your country, guess what's going to happen to the buyers of the Polish grain, the premium grain? They're not going to get it, right? They're not going to get the premium prices. So, yeah, there's a squabble right there, and it's going to be there until this Russian thing has settled out and Ukraine can naturally move its grain to its former purchasers through the Black Sea, Mediterranean, the Suez Canal. It's just going to be this way. And, Poland just does not know what's going to happen with Ukraine and Russia right now. Nobody knows how this is going to shake out. Whether there'll even be a Ukrainian government. Nobody knows how it's going to shake out. Now, Ukraine cannot win against Russia without having absolute control of the air. We're not talking about can go in and bomb occasionally and get in and out without having your aircraft killed. You have to have absolute dominance over the battlefield. If you don't have air dominance over the battlefield, since World War II, no country, no battle has been won that doesn't have air dominance. That's a war between two countries. Now, if it's tribal, that's a different deal, right? But two nations at war, you cannot win without maintaining air dominance. And Ukraine's never going to have 1,000 jets with 2,000 of the pilots in the world. It's just not going to happen.
It was like I was saying earlier or last night. When let's say they've got 10, they got 20, they got 30. Well, what if Russia's got 500? I mean, there is.
Russia's got 1,000.
Well, yeah. The thing is, though, William, is Ukraine is not a major country like uh, Russia, United States, China, and how big we are with our military. And when you have this little itty bitty military and a president running around saying, "I need money, I need military, I need bombs, I need launchers, I need," that tells you that they're not going to win this war. That's just logical thinking.
Another couple things that are going on in a civil war, which is what this is, right? This is a civil war between Slavs, Russian Slavs, Ukrainian Slavs. They believe in the same religion.
Yeah.
They bow to the same God. They have the same eye color,
Yes.
right? They have the same hair color, and they have the same features. They are brothers.
Mm-hmm.
In a situation of the Civil War, the people involved in the battle will be willing to suck in all the military resources the world has to offer, completely destabilize the world. They'll keep fighting because they get a blood grudge going on.
Yeah.
They'll fight to the absolute last man.
If they got one bullet, they're going to go for it.
Yeah, and so in the best interest of both sides, from an outside place, we're not doing them any real favors here by sending in more arms. Now, it's better that they come to a truce at a place of strength so that Russia doesn't completely overrun Ukraine, but Ukraine's going to have to get okay with not being part of the EU, not having EU banks. They can sell their grain to the EU, but not have EU banks
Mm-hmm.
and EU control and NATO control in Ukraine. That's out the window, off the table. That happened the day Russia invaded. Nobody wanted to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're down to brass tacks, right? We knew this day was coming, and I hope that they can come to enough of an amicable position that in these contested areas that they have like a UN police with a Russian police and a Ukrainian police attached,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you go out and do policing in these areas, and there has to be police, right? You can't have a lawless area. They have to be policed. That the people feel like they get a fair shake, whether they're more pro-Russian or they're more pro-Ukrainian.
Right.
And hopefully that'll happen. I don't know if it will, but that's the absolute best outcome that you can expect. But we should just be looking for a truce. This thing's never going to end. These are wars that have been going on for 1,000 years.
Or more. All of them. The Ukraine and Russia, China, Taiwan, parts of Africa.
Islam,
Mm-hmm.
the Arabs, and back in the day it was Egyptians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Persians. This squabble's been going on for 3,000 years. It's not going away in our lifetime. We have to get okay with that. What we need to do is set up a situation where everybody can live together without killing each other. Now,
or hatred, or the hatred for one another.
That's maybe as good as it gets. And if we can get free trade, that's just a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But the great thing about the United States is we're willing to put our soldiers all over the world to keep the world from going up in flames and thereby suck us into another major global war, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the United States is willing to spend more now than a whole lot later, whereas the Europeans are more willing to pay a whole lot later rather than more now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going on in NATO.
Yes.
It's just balance of power.
Well, even NATO, even the EU, and some of the France and others, Italy, are now complaining that they're finding these uh, uh, um, young migrants under the age of 18 are actually in their 20s.
And they're fighters, okay? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
These kids are not migrants. They're fighters.
No, yes. And there are so many men.
They're
and
already
then
trained.
William, and the whole thing with the border, I see the women. The women, how many times do we see the women either fighters or the wives of a terrorist, and they have children that are being trained to be a terrorist? How many of those have been vetted? We don't know, because they're letting all women and children through the border.
Right. They engage in jihad in any way possible, including marriage.
Mm-hmm.
The darker gals that come in are going to try to find men that will accept them. Maybe they're not the most
mm-hmm.
beautiful, so they go for the powerful men, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
and they'll carry a bomb just as quick as a child will.
Yeah, and then you can use the Western family against itself, against its own culture.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, William, do you have anything to add on this? I might. Would you consider coming back tomorrow night?
Sure, whatever you need, Elly.
Okay. I'm thinking we could go on with this, because I didn't even get into Iran and the explosion that they had today. Also, the killing of one of their leaders. And there's a lot more, and I don't want to tie everybody up for another hour. So I'm going to bring William back tomorrow night and to go over some of this stuff. This is very important for you to know of what's going on in the Middle East. It's not just Hamas and Israel. And Netanyahu has been saying for at least a decade that it's about Iran. And they have been trying to expose Iran with their nuclear weapons production. And nobody listens. And Netanyahu said over and over and over, this is Iran, this is Iran. Now we're starting to have it come to light that this is all about Iran. So anyway, William, I thank you much for being put off for a little bit tonight. We're going to bring William back tomorrow night, and we're going to have another World War III report tomorrow night to continue this, because this is stuff y'all need to know. This is stuff that you need to be able to tell people and have the knowledge of it, of what's going on in the Middle East. Because why? Because it's death to Israel, death to America. What are we hearing from Korea? Death to America, death to South Korea. So many countries now want to say death to America, and they're willing to go after us in every way they can, whether it's a power outage, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's just them threatening and flexing their muscles. We just know that we have hundreds and thousands pouring over our border that aren't being vetted, and we're finding out there's a lot of terrorists. Okay, William, thank you much. And
thank you for the opportunity, Elly.
And subscribe and hit that like button. And if you're not getting notified about the shows, boy, I get hit every night, folks, with what I tell you. It's community standards, and they don't tell me what I've done wrong. They just say community standards, and they block me from people seeing me. And we gotta get everyone to share us, and so if they block us, we can get the word out. All right. So with that, folks, God bless. And we will see everyone tomorrow with me and William, and maybe World War III report part 2. Thanks, William.
Yep, you bet.